So we've had just a huge number of comments in reply to my earlier video about violent student behavior in the classroom. And one of the things that's come up multiple times is the fact that a lot of students are on IEPs for behavior. Perhaps they have developmental issues or neurodivergence issues that are contributing to that behavior. In a lot of cases, there are behavior plans in place that don't seem to really protect the teacher or other staff members or the other students from repeat violent behavior. And I think one thing we've got to keep in mind is that as educators, we have the obligation to do what we can, right? We have the obligation to provide accommodations, to provide supports, to put the right things in place to set the student up for success. But we don't have the obligation to just tolerate anything that occurs ever, period, no matter how dangerous, no matter how damaging, no matter how violent. Like no IEP says you should have to tolerate an infinite amount of violence from this child. Like that's just not what IEPs say. And yet the kinds of things that teachers are being told they have to do or they have to put up with or they have to overlook because of what's in an IEP or a behavior plan, like it's really mind-boggling. I'd encourage you to read some of the comments on that other video. And when it comes to individual student differences and individual student needs, I think the thing that we've got to keep in mind is that we are setting students up for the real world. Like there is special education, but there's not a special world out there where if you're violent, it's okay. Like if you grow up and are violent, they're not going to ask in court or at the police station, do you have an IEP? So this idea that we can just kind of let things go and that that'll be better for the student doesn't really work. I think when we have an incident of violence with a student with an IEP, with a student with a disability, we need to look at that as evidence that something is not working in the behavior plan or in the IEP, and not just blame the people involved, not blame the other students or the staff members. Like when I hear things like, well, what did you do to set him off? Or did you follow the behavior plan? Like we can expect people to make a good effort to follow behavior plans, but I don't think we can expect perfection. And I think it's really gaslighting to ask teachers questions like, well, what did you do that contributed to this? What did you do that set it off? Because like ultimately the student is responsible for their own behavior. And if we could change that fact throughout a student's life, maybe we could make a case that we can always take responsibility for a student's behavior, but ultimately they're going to leave us at some point and they are going to be responsible for their behavior. So this idea that we can run education differently, run the classroom differently, and just tolerate things, I don't think that sets up the student for success. And it certainly makes life miserable for everybody else. So let me know what you think.